Hello, Mr. The Retailer. This is Dex Ranker, attorney at law, representing the rise of Skywalker in movie court. Wanted to thank you for your pro bono work defending my client. It's making my job easier, and frankly, our whole office has been impressed at your imaginative methods for defending Rise of Skywalker, ignoring logic, ignoring storytelling, basically the whole ignoring the crappy movie making presented. I mean, proposing that maybe Palpatine is lying about Rey based on absolutely no on-screen in-movie evidence? Mwah, pure movie lawyer gold. Of course, we cannot formally compensate you for your work, but you are eligible for a free Five Guys meal under $15 anytime you're in the area. Okay, thanks. Peace out.
Hello there, welcome to another episode of The Star Wars Minute. It's your daily podcast in which we analyze, scrutinize, and celebrate the rise of Skywalker 1 minute at a time. I'm Alex Robinson from alexrobinson.fun.
I'm Pete the Retailer from petetheretailer.fun.
I'm Katharine Coldiron from the Jundland Wastes of Tatooine.
Welcome back, Katharine.
Very happy to be here.
We're talking about minute 37 of The Rise of Skywalker today. Hope that doesn't come as a surprise to anyone. Minute number 37 starts off with the Knights of Ren rocking out on their bluff. And it ends a minute later with C-3PO being very judgmental about Ochi's ship vis-a-vis its cleanliness.
It's a butte. It's a butte, not a bluff.
Yeah.
It is a butte.
Yeah.
What is the difference between a bluff and a butte?
I don't know what a bluff is. That wasn't in my research.
A bluff is more of it's less of a West Coast thing, and it also tends to be more like one-sided. Like it overlooks maybe a body of water or, and they're short, they're like, riverbank versions of buttes.
I see. So it's like there's water somehow involved in a bluff.
It doesn't have to be, but yes, usually.
Okay. All right.
I'm imagining grass on a bluff.
Yeah.
All right. Good to know. Anyway, so yes, starts with the bluff, ends with C-3PO.
I love that we just activated like geology, like we're gonna get a whole bunch of people, like, or topography, whatever. People just being like, no, wait, this I think you're talking about one of these. Like whenever we go off into one of these little tangents, I love the people that pop up like, actually, this is my expertise, and you're
Well, yeah, I mean. Sorry, I'm just thinking about my favorite version of that is the How Did This Get Made about Howard the Duck, where someone in the audience knows about duck penises, and so they stand up and talk about.
Wow. Well, if you want to weigh in on geology or duck penises, let us know in the comments below. In the meantime,
what's a duck penis?
I feel like it would be more useful if the Knights of Ren spread out a little bit. They're all kind
they're
of
more
like
threatening this way, though.
Yeah, I guess they're like meerkats. I guess they all just face in different directions, and that's their search style. But anyway,
I guess it is a good, like, let's get up on that high thing and we'll each look in a different direction and somebody just shout if you see something.
Yeah.
I guess that works. And they're not trying to hide from it. They're not trying to like pretend that they're not there.
Yeah.
Are they? They're not,
no,
they don't care if their presence is known.
No, I don't think folks like them are interested in the illusion that they're not there, or, I think it's a gang, they want to be together.
Yeah. I mean, their car, their spaceship, is rigged specifically to leave a huge, disgusting exhaust plume wherever they go. So I don't think they're trying to be subtle about it or anything.
Yeah. But they definitely should have a theme song then. They should have like a little thing that plays. I guess the camera drone will also be playing the Knights of Ren theme. It's like heavy metal, like WWE style entrance music that they get when they come out.
So there's a thing from the beginning of this that I want to mention because it's probably come up before, but the sinking fields.
Mm-hmm.
So I have many complaints about the sinking fields, but I will say I love that it has the tradition of like 80s movies where quicksand is like a severe problem that you have to worry about, as opposed to never happens in real life. But it also reminds me a lot of the black. I don't know if they have these on the East Coast, but they have these like black plastic balls that they put in reservoirs in California to refract the sun so that the water doesn't evaporate from the reservoir. And that's kind of what the sinking fields reminded me of. So I love that you're able to see that effect as you look out over the landscape here with, of course, lens flares.
Right. I think we learned last week that it was the practical effect was just a big pile of coffee beans.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're still there. Do you think they cleaned up all the coffee beans, or did they just leave them there? A lot of jittery mice.
I think we should start a thing where people go to Jordan and just drop a big, empty out a bag of whole bean coffee into the desert
for their homies.
For the homies, yeah.
Right, yeah.
For the fallen Knights of Ren.
Oh. So then we see the gang they're climbing up a little butte to get up to Ochi's ship. And
another butte. Double butte.
And I feel like this is the first time we really see C-3PO kind of clambering up something, and it looks very unnatural to me. I don't know if it was CGI or like a different costume. It just looks very strange to me.
How would you have felt if C-3PO suddenly developed rockets? If he was just like, in like Iron Man style, flew up to the top of the butte?
At this point, it feels very consistent with the rest of the film. So I would say, okay, I'll go along with that.
Touché.
Well, but he's a biped. It's different than a regular droid. Like it's, Data doesn't have rockets either.
That we know of.
Yeah. What if instead of like a rocket, it was like Go-Go Gadget legs, where he could like, have his legs turn really long, like a stilt man kind of a thing.
Or like the what was the Super Globetrotter? What was it when the Harlem Globetrotters had superpowers? Didn't one of them like spring loaded? Or am I thinking of the Robonic Stooges?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I think you're thinking of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but I mean, and also to me, I have a really hard time separating 3PO on screen from imagining poor Anthony in a suit. Like, I don't know how to explain that, because I do think of 3PO as a character, but whenever I see him, I'm like, that's a dude in a robot suit. And so for him to be awkward is kind of like, oh, yeah, okay, he's awkward. And to imagine there being more room in the suit for rockets or Go-Go Gadget anything, I'm like, no way. It's so small. Like,
there's just a guy in there.
Yeah.
Where's it going to fit? I'm imagining there was probably kind of like the way that BB-8, a lot of the times when we see him rolling around, there's like a guy with a stick pushing him around that's all covered in green that erase. So there might have been, C-3PO might have had like a green screen boost, like somebody spotting him to help him get up the rocks, but wearing a body sock.
I guess I wonder if it's not Tony Daniels in there sometimes.
Oh, I don't think it is. And I'll tell you a really nice story about that, actually. And I'm not firm on the details, but my husband is a video game designer, and so he has a lot of friends in various fandoms. And one of them is a guy who, for whatever reason, was just obsessed with C-3PO. He was building C-3PO models and costumes and everything else. And he used to cosplay as 3PO. And he did it so well that he caught the notice of LucasArts at the time and Lucasfilm later. And so he has become one of the stand-ins who operates who's in the 3PO costume. So that's kind of like, don't lose hope. Your fandom can bring you into the notice of if you do it well enough. So my wild guess is that they have a new guy, maybe not that specific guy that my husband knows, but a new guy who's not Anthony Daniels in that suit climbing up, or like you said, it's CGI, because you're right, it doesn't look like his movement.
There is a guy who's kind of the I think he's like the go-to stand-in, he's like the public appearance C-3PO, and also has done a couple of other droids and stuff like that. And I forgot his name, but I
might be the same guy.
I follow him on Twitter.
My brain is saying his name is
Twitter for like C-3PO guy. And he's not going to show up, but
my brain is telling me his name is Tim, but I don't think that's necessarily correct. But yeah, I'm sure that there are lots of people who can stand in for, the now somewhat elderly Anthony Daniels.
Right. well, not too many people. It does take a certain, a certain je ne sais quoi, but
A small head.
yeah.
Could you
That's
fit in the
part of it,
suit?
I'm sure.
You got the job.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I think you would need some mime training probably
Yeah.
to play 3PO, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's like being a mascot, kind of,
Yeah.
not just anybody can just step in there and be a mascot. There's good mascots and bad mascots.
I feel like Go ahead, Catherine.
No. I was going to move on.
You can
Okay.
talk
Well,
about
the
mascots.
last, so I feel like you see C-3PO walking, kind of climbing up, and then Chewbacca walks in front of him, and I feel like that Chewbacca walking in front of him is kind of where it, like they had him moving his legs up until Chewbacca there, and then after that, it's much more like normal C-3PO. So they might have just added a couple of the frames right before he goes behind Chewbacca to make him look more like he's capable of walking up. Because we've never seen him even really do anything other than just kind of shuffle along.
We saw him
the costume's not bendy.
Yeah. We saw him stumble down one step in Star Wars. Like he freaks out and like slips down that one step.
Yeah.
And yeah, along these same lines, we see Chewie just full on carrying BB-8, which is
that's what I was going to move on to. I feel like that's a testament to Chewbacca's strength there. Because that's I have assumed that BB-8 is incredibly heavy. So
well, it's full of coins still, right? Or do you shoot all those out?
How heavy do you think he is? Like comparable to a I'm trying to think of something like a bowling ball. I guess there's different weights.
No. I figure he's 150, 200 pounds. I don't think he's a light. I don't think he's like a pet. I assume he's just got full of innards that are useful and metal and heavy.
I'm trying to find.
I bet we were talking about kind of activating the geology fans before. I bet we can. Somebody out there knows enough physics that they could use some shot in one of these movies with like BB-8 getting kind of falling and bouncing off something, and they can use the bounce rate to determine how much he probably weighs. Given if we can assume that gravity is the same.
I mean, I can tell you from being the wife of an AI video game designer that like the way that they do physics for that is not. Yeah. Ragdolling is not that precise.
According to the Rise of Skywalker visual dictionary, they don't have his weight. They have his height and his age. You want to guess how old BB-8 is?
Oh gosh.
My gut says either like 7 or 700.
Yeah, he's like a tween, not a girl, not yet a woman. Or he's really, really old and just still in a good mood.
He is 16 going on 17?
He is 6.
Oh, all right.
What?
6 years old.
He's such a baby.
He's manufactured 5 years before the Battle of Starkiller Base. So he's
so Poe must have just gotten him not long before we met him.
Yeah.
Maybe Poe commissioned him.
He's a custom build.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
because they do say do say he's one of a kind in the.
That's true.
Yeah.
When I type in how much does BB-8, it's my Google search top thing. How much does BB-8 weigh, and then how much does BB-8 cost? How much does BB-8 weigh? And this is like real life. The BB-8 toy, the little one that you can remote control. How heavy is BB-8 in Star Wars? Again, it just keeps going to the toy.
So you're saying 150 to 200 pounds? I mean, he would be dense.
I figure he's super dense and heavy.
Yeah.
I don't like, I know titanium is light, but I don't think he is.
Oh, so here, somebody extrapolated. They couldn't find any in-universe evidence in the film, novelization, or visual dictionary. They take the toy version, they say, is around 200 grams at the height of 11 centimeters.
Grams?
And then if they proportionally size it up, then they say he weighs about 42 kilos, which probably isn't accurate since there's different, let's say, back of the envelope guessing, it looks like his body is 20 to 30% of R2-D2 by volume. And they had figured out how much R2-D2 apparently weighs about 32 kilograms head to head. Oh no, that's Star Wars Rebels head to head. In an episode of Rebels, they talk about how much R2-D2 weighs.
Head to head. What does that mean? I've never heard
It's
that
an
term.
episode, I guess, of
Oh,
Rebels.
okay. I thought that was like a measurement. Head to head.
No, that sounds like a measurement.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
So they say that we're going to assume that BB-8 is roughly 20 to 30% of R2-D2 by volume because they fit in the same size X-Wing astromech socket. R2's body seems to be exactly 1.5 times BB-8's body, so size-wise, blah, blah, blah. They do some math. Assuming he's not made of some advanced ultralight composites that severely affected his density by comparison, that gives us about 12.4 kilograms. So
that sounds less than 150 to 200 pounds.
I believe it is. Yeah. Isn't that only about like 30
well, I'm
pounds
also thinking about when he fell into the pit in Last Jedi, I think, and freaking knocked Finn over.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In the Millennium Falcon.
I guess they kind of hedged their bets by having Chewbacca carry him because then, he's
Right.
Chewbacca's theoretically super
He's
strong.
the strongest
so
plot.
He could, if they had Finn
Could be
carrying
anything,
him, then we
yeah.
would know he was,
Right.
or at least be able to tell how much Finn was struggling. But
Yeah,
I also
12.8
feel like-
kilograms is about 28.2 pounds. So
Yeah, no, that's way too light.
that does seem
I
too
also
light.
just think it's if he was light enough to carry with normal human strength, then I feel like we would have seen Poe lift him into the air like in Dirty Dancing before now. It's
nobody puts BB in a corner.
Although,
right.
because he's round, it's hard. That does make me think, well, why not? We've seen that BB-8 can survive getting kind of tossed around a lot. Why doesn't Chewie just throw him up there?
Because that
Or-
would be goofy, and this
That
is a
would be goofy.
serious movie, Pete.
Or why doesn't he Spider-Man up there? As we saw him kind of
Well, that's a good
stabilize
question.
himself in the Falcon. Why doesn't he?
I love the
But,
idea of Chewie just tossing him like he's like a kickball.
Right, yeah.
Or Barry
Or, yeah, punting
kicking
him
him up there.
Nobody tosses a droid.
Well,
But it
speaking
is
of
a little
droids,
cute seeing Chewie carrying him. So.
yeah. We
Chewie
get
cares.
I thought it was an interesting interaction between Poe and C-3PO here, where C-3PO, typically worried as usual, says that they should return to the Millennium Falcon at once. And then Poe says, they'll be
Poe
waiting
says-
for us at the Falcon.
Falcon.
So another one of those situations where we get both pronunciations in the same interaction.
That's I'm 50-50 on fan service. Like sometimes I love it and sometimes I truly hate it. And this I liked because I feel like it established for everybody out there that you can pronounce it either way and it's fine.
Right.
Like I really like that.
I feel like I associate Falcon most with Han Solo. I feel like he's the one who says, I'll get her back to the Falcon.
Han Solo.
Han
Tomatoes.
I
Solo,
associate it
Falcon.
with Thurston Howell the Third. Han Solo was on the Millennium Falcon. That was a terrible.
He would have joined the
Thurston Howell.
Empire. Something that happens as they're climbing up is okay. So I mentioned something about Spielbergness, and as they're climbing up, there's a moment where Rey begins to tune into Kylo Ren landing on the planet, and so she turns around, and behind her, Poe gives Finn, or is the other way around, a leg up onto the next part of the butte. And that's action that's taking place. Like in a lesser director would have that be two different shots where you would see, you'd zoom in on Rey and then you'd cut to a different angle on Poe and Finn doing this leg up system. And instead he does it all in one shot, which is more difficult and much better, much more artful, in my opinion. It's but it is very much copying Spielberg, who is really good at doing like 4 different shots in one shot. Instead of cutting from thing to thing, he's just like, okay, let's have this going on in the foreground. Let's have this going on in the background. And often the background thing is not as important, but it still adds color to life. And this is a great example of that, of like, yeah, just wanted to point that out for film folks watching.
Yeah.
It's really
and
nice.
I noticed a similar thing. Yesterday's Minute had a similar thing, and in the bit where Rey is explaining to BB-8 how BB-8 would have healed someone if he could, while Rey's talking to him, in the background we see Finn opening up the hole that the snake, like clambering up and starting to go out the hole. So again, yeah, it's a good efficient storytelling to have it all kind of in one consistent shot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. because as I mean, I'm echoing a lot of guests here, but I also only watched this once in the theaters, and I didn't watch it again until last weekend to prepare for this. And I had either not noticed or neglected to give full credit to how well directed this movie is. I know Abrams is not for everybody in terms of the lens flares and his abandonment porn and all the other stuff that's kind of marks him. I get that. I like his directing, but I also think that this one has pretty unassailable choices of angles and action, and the way that he puts together setups to make things happen in scenes is you can't say, well, that's just bad. Like it's not. He's doing classical late 20th century directing in a way that I think is very difficult to criticize. The content of what he's doing, I can criticize that all day. I just wanted to remark on that because it's something that I think a lot of people haven't talked about with this movie because there's so much other stuff to talk about. It's very well directed.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, that's his style doing, it's like with music, you'll have somebody coming out, kind of in the 2000s, it sounds like an 80s band, but it's their style and they're kind of still doing it. And it's same idea where he's like, yes, he's kind of synthesizing a collection of these kind of, 80s kind of movie techniques. And that's how he's very much influenced by Spielberg and some other, movie makers, but it's consistent within his style pretty much that he's not just doing it to be. He's not just doing a direct copy of things. He's kind of absorbed that and is good at doing what he does.
I mean, it's also to me, it's interesting because this is a whole other conversation, but there's a lot of stuff about Star Wars that usefully remains in past techniques of filmmaking. So, for instance, there's no modern instruments; it's all orchestral in the way that classical Hollywood used music. It's all violins and brass and everything. There's no electric guitars like you would see in Iron Man or some of the later Marvel movies. And I think that Abrams really locked into that. And that's part of why this feels like, it doesn't feel like a modern action movie. But I also noticed that, especially in The Mandalorian, there are newer Star Wars iterations that do use kind of Michael Bay influence and James Cameron influence, and like the snap zooms when you're looking at something flying in, that's Cameron. And the Confusa-vision in battle scenes, especially in the TV shows, like that's influenced by Braveheart and everything that came after it. And I hate that.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's not a valid style of action filmmaking, but I'm grateful that Abrams decided to stick with older style action movie making.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and as partially for my own just personal taste and partially for the kind of consistent language of film from Star Wars. It's like, oh yeah, well they do introduce new things from time to time, and it's kind of can be jarring if you're not expecting it.
All the handheld in Kenobi drove me freaking nuts. God,
Yeah.
I hated that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
always fun
sorry,
seeing new.
I went off on a...
No,
sorry,
it's-
guys.
Why we're here.
I went off on a tangent.
We've noticed we've made a note of whenever new, like the original Star Wars has no flashbacks in it whatsoever. And, now I think, we don't have true flashbacks, but we have like Luke telling the story
Visions.
about, his interaction with Ben, and we see it from three different points, or three different versions of that same thing. And that's something that was certainly never, hinted at
Right.
with
And like Rey's flashbacks to her, like snippets of memory and stuff like that.
Mhm.
yeah,
So-
we get a lot more visions and things like that. But it'll be
I like
interesting.
that you've said visions and points of view, both of which are other Star Wars products, so they know what they're doing.
I don't think there's
do.
any words that are not associated with Star Wars now.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, no, I mean, there must be a concordance of it somewhere where, every word that's used in every... Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'd love to get my hands on that. Another thing that happens in this minute that's unusual is you get a shot of people entering the spaceship from the interior. I did a whole video about landing shots in the TV shows specifically, and like there are 41 landing shots in Boba Fett, Mando, Obi-Wan, and a few episodes of Andor. So like there's just too many landing shot. Oh my God. But they have this very specific grammar. And one of the parts is like part 3 of the landing shot is the person comes out of the ship. And you never like there's one shot in Andor where you see it from inside instead of from outside. And so I was like, ooh, I was primed to notice that there's an interior shot of the ship when you get on it.
Yeah, and it's a cool kind of transition too, that we go kind of like to almost darkness, and then the thing opens up, the hatch, the gangplank.
I also think it's a little like, what do you guys think of Rey giving Finn her stuff before she goes down to?
It tracks with, because when in the cave just a couple minutes ago, when she's going to touch the snake, she hands Finn the lightsaber, which makes sense because it was kind of his for a little bit. And so I think it's the same kind of thing about like, okay, here, not strictly like, here, take on the Jedi mantle, but it's just like, oh, here, hold my stuff, hold this stuff, which you may be more in tune with than other people. Like, you might know what to do with some of this, perhaps.
You mean with her utility belt? Like, that's...
Yeah, I don't know. That's my take on it. Is like, she's like, you're going to be like training to be the, so like, almost like it's like, if he's the intern, but on a more, not on a kind of like, I don't care, here, just take this, you're doing whatever I say level, but on a kind of like, well, here, like, some of this stuff might be useful. You'll know at least what, if somebody's like, hey, hand me the lightsaber, you'll know what that is, as opposed to, I mean, everybody knows what a lightsaber is, but
I guess I think of it just seems natural to hand it to Finn, because Finn has proven himself to be kind of like Rey's kind of like lapdog in a way. You know what I mean? Like, he's always the one wondering where she is, if she's okay, and all that stuff. So I think it's just second nature to say, well, he'll take the stuff I hand to him, because Poe will be like, you carry your own stuff. I'm not going to carry all your, what am I, your surge droid or something? So, yeah.
So I feel like it's two things at the same time. One thing is that it's interesting to me that she doesn't take her stuff down to the flat with her. Like, that it's odd that she just isn't fully equipped when she goes down. Like, why would you take off your stuff before you go down there? And I don't know. I just find it odd. And it seems like it's paperwork as opposed to storytelling. And the other thing is, I think it's the first moment where, in this movie particularly, Finn doesn't have much of a personality. He's much more of a support strut for Rey. And because I'm a feminist and I've observed how many movies have a male hero with a woman as a support strut for him who has no personality or arc of her own, I thought that I would like this if it happened, if you had a guy who was just like there to say all the things that need to be said to the hero. But actually, it just makes me mad. And part of it is that they have stripped this interesting character of an identity that he had. And part of it is like, I just don't want that to happen to anybody. I thought that I wanted revenge for all of these female characters without voices, but instead I'm just like, no, let's stop doing storytelling like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's odd too that it's like, it's a character that he helped create. J.J. Abrams did, like, told the story of Finn and how, like, oh, great, and how interesting that is, but then just kind of left it. I mean, that's not uncommon for not an uncommon criticism of J.J. Abrams, who's, hey, set it up and then it didn't go anywhere. Like, but it's like same thing with like Finn. And he's like, oh, he's got this cool thing. You think you would be able to use that, but I mean, he also had other characters that he was focusing more on, and I don't know. I agree, and it is frustrating.
You know what? It's not frustrating. Hearing Finn refer to the Pits of Gric.
The Pits of Gric.
He says if they'll catch them, they'll be thrown into the Pits of Gric. I looked it up on the Wikipedia. Thankfully, no other information about the Pits of Gric. This is the only reference to it. And I like it. It's kind of like the modern version. We can't say the Spice Mines of Kessel now because we've seen that. We know what's going on there. So it's another thing where we're just alluding to some horrible place that, will be the centerpiece of a movie 20 years from now. So
I love that. Because I also looked it up and it was like, oh, it's got like, 6 citations as to like where it appeared, but it's like, you know, Rise of Skywalker novelization, Rise of Skywalker Junior novelization, Rise of Skywalker, you know, like
trading cards.
it's just all the same, the one reference, and nobody else has gone back to that. And I like the way they react to it too. It's almost like a little, I don't mean this in a negative way, but is there a positive connotation for like it's a little broy? They're like the Pits of Gric, and it's like like they both seem like oh yeah, that would be like they both know that it's bad, and they have a little bit like like Beavis and Buttheadiness about it.
Yep.
Which I like because I like their relationship, and again that's something that could have been further explored, but I don't know.
C'est la vie.
Yeah.
Say la Star Wars. Okay, so then we look around at this ship, which I think is extremely unnecessary to introduce this new ship, but we have it now and there's no going back. And clear away some cobwebs, and you know, we're coming up on half an hour here, so I don't necessarily want to open a can of worms, but I'm curious about how engines and things age in this universe. And for instance, in Battlefield Earth, there's a scene where they go, the humans who live on Earth go and find a bunch of 2,000-year-old F-14 Tomcats, and they're all gassed up, and they start right up, and off they go, and come on. And so I'm curious about, you know, we don't know anything about fuel because this is soft sci-fi. But I'm curious if there's any sort of, okay, this has been sitting on a butte for however many years that it's gathered cobwebs, and it just starts up and off we go. Like, what's that? Do you have opinions about that?
I will, I'll defer some of this to tomorrow because it does, I mean, if you can come back tomorrow, the whole next minute, like, is that basically, you know, it takes a full movie minute of stuff. Alex, did you have
I just wanted to, you mentioned the cobwebs. Does this imply that Ochi's ship is filled up with spiders? Because that would be a creepy thing if they take off.
They're cobwebs. They're different, right? They're like dust and
cobs.
Whatever. Cobs, yeah.
Aren't cobwebs
Somebody called the cobs.
Aren't cobwebs just wrecked spider webs?
No.
They're not? Oh, I always assumed they were just kind of like
they're like dust chains, essentially.
Yeah, they're like, and I only know this from my own home. in areas where I have never had spiders, there are cobwebs, which are like, I think
everyone has spiders.
No, I mean I do, but like I have spiders over there, and the cobwebs are over here, and like I'm pretty sure that it's just dust that has kind of gathered up into a thing,
into chains.
Yeah, chain dust.
Chain dust. That sounds much cooler than cobwebs.
Yeah, I want to start calling it.
Sounds like an NFT, actually, but
it does. Yeah. Everything else I have about Ochi's ship can go for tomorrow's stuff. But before we wrap up, I do want to call attention to today's Knight of Ren entry from the Star Wars Visual Dictionary. Today we are talking about Vicruel. Vicruel. There he is.
Vicruel. Cruel totally sounds like something somebody would name themselves if they were trying to be all dark and.
For sure.
Vicruel sees himself as the harvester, the reaper of the fallen. That's kind of how he sees himself. And the most interesting thing about him is he has a kind of I don't know, like it's a scythe. Is it scythe?
Scythe.
Yeah.
Scythe. Anyway, but apparently it gets more powerful with everyone that he kills. I don't know how that works.
No, I don't like that.
It's somehow.
I love those weapons. I love those cursed weapons that do that. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so we haven't gotten into the details on how that works, but hopefully that'll be explained in a future. The Vicruel series coming to Disney Plus in 2027. Anything else for minute number 37?
Nothing that won't keep.
Okay. Katharine, you are willing to come back tomorrow to talk about Ochi's ship, the legacy of Bastoon?
Oh, absolutely.
Bastoon
I
legacy.
have complaints as long as my arm.
All right. Well, we are looking
not
forward.
One of those little like force regenerated arms. That's
not a little toddler arm.
Yeah, no.
Well, yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed hearing us talk about Star Wars, but did you know Pete and I have been on several other podcasts over the decades? Pete and I were two of the 4 co-hosts of Alphabetical, where we went through all the Beatles songs in alphabetical order, from 12 to Y. Pete has also hosted ABCDEVO, the ABC, go through all the Devo album tracks in alphabetical order, right?
Yes.
Just the album tracks.
Just the album tracks. On Patreon, we went through the other tracks. So.
Okay, so there you go. If you're a Devo fan, congratulations. You found your listening for the next few months. And I'm the co-host of Godfather Minute, where me and my brother go through the Godfather movies. We are currently neck deep into Godfather 2 right now, so you can join us.
Neck deep.
Yes, exactly. And Pete, what's up with ABCD TOS these days? Have you finished reviewing all the Star Trek movies?
It took us forever to get, for some reason, it took us forever to do the last one, which was Wrath of Khan, alphabetically, of course. So it was, you can imagine the travails, the problems that we had in life, where for some reason we couldn't find time to watch the Wrath of Khan and talk about it. But then, yes, we've completed that, and right now we are contemplating moving ahead. And it's no guarantee because we're all adults with schedules, but we're plotting out what it might look like to do A, B, C, D, T, N, G. So.
Oh my gosh! Can I be your co-host, please, please, please?
Sure, we can work something out.
I'll be a guest.
What did you determine was the best Star Trek movie?
Best and favorite were different.
Sure.
For a lot of us, we all have real. We all had real soft spots for the motion picture because it kind of is very Star Trek-y. But I wouldn't necessarily go running around saying it was the best, but it certainly has things that are great about it. And
I have a very very talkative friend on film Twitter who says that TOS is the best. The original Star Trek the Motion Picture is the best one because it's a tone poem devoted to the Enterprise, as opposed to being an actual movie. And I don't think that's a crazy interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely. This is getting into. Let's take this off in a Star Trek direction here, but yeah, it definitely is a kind of aimed at Star Trek fans, which is Then after that, it kind of changes gears and. Yeah. But yes, I love me some motion picture.
All right, well, if you want further details on which things Pete did and did not like about the original Star Trek, check that out, ABCDTOS, and check us out tomorrow for another brand new Star Wars Minute.
Star Wars
Minute!